I look forward to going back and watch a little film and really continue to work out the details. But, like any day one, you knew the energy would be there, but this is a starting point, and we have to continue to move forward from here. So with that, I'll open up for questions.
Front row on your left.
John Finneran, Associated Press. I'll get it out. Could you give us an update on your team's health coming out of the summer and stuff like that? Who you expect, who you might miss for a couple of weeks, that kind of thing?
I don't have my list here, but off the top of my head, I know the guys that we won't expect to see the first game is Joe Wilkins and Mitch Evans, J.D. Price. Those are the three off the top of my head that we know will be out for the first game. And then the rest of the guys we expect to be ready to go September 3rd. Now, there's a progression for some guys getting back. We can't just go 0 and put them in there 100. So we have some guys on limited reps, obviously Logan Diggs, and we had Maris Liefau on some limited reps today. But for the most part, those three are the guys that we know will be out for the first game. And then we expect those other guys that may have had limited reps today to be ready to roll.
And my follow-up question is, you're going to be asked this question a lot before the opener, thinking about coaching against your alma mater. I know you've done it before as an assistant. Give us some thoughts on what's going through.
Yeah,
preparation.
Yeah, I think I've said this a couple of times, but again, I know what it's like to be in the visiting locker room, be on the other side of the field. This is about Notre Dame football. And I know some of the headlines will be me going back to my alma mater, but my focus point is Notre Dame football and preparing this team. And then we get to September 3rd. Ohio State happens to be the opponent. Now, the great thing is it's a great opponent, right? And what better way to challenge yourself and to see where we are as a team than to face an opponent like that. But this has nothing to do with, me going back to my alma mater. This is about Notre Dame playing Ohio State.
Third row on your right.
Marcus, noticed Joey Tinona wasn't listed on the roster handed out today. I'm wondering if you might be able to comment on his status.
Medically retired. After his accident in the wintertime, he kept trying to come back and, mentally and physically was not in a place that he was ready to play football. And so he decided to medically retire. He'll still be here to get his degree, which is, again, the greatest thing about this place is that we can guarantee you one thing, and that's at some point the game of football is going to be over. But you have a chance to get a degree from this university. You have a chance to be successful. So he's in good spirits.
And then just kind of what you've been thinking going into practice. Have you kind of figured out maybe a timeline for where, if all things kind of goes you might want them to, you want to have a starting QB kind of settled on?
Yeah, as soon as we can. I love the competition aspect of it. I think, competition really helps people grow. But as soon as we're ready to name a starting quarterback, we're going to do it. We're not waiting for a certain time, a certain days, but we just need to make sure we're ready to name a starting quarterback, and we will.
Third row on your left.
Me, Allison Hayes, ABC 57. Talking about the quarterbacks, just how much did the spring factor in with having the injuries? Did anyone get any heads up on that or headway on that, or is it completely wide open heading into the fall?
Yeah, I think we have it's a two-quarterback battle right now between Tyler and Drew. I think they all had major strides in the spring. Tyler missed the last two practices. One was being a spring game and the practice before that. But, he got 13 really good practices in, and I thought both of those guys had extremely good spring. And then Steve and Ronnie, those guys had good springs in terms of progression, right? But what you'll see is Drew and Tyler battle it out, and they'll both get reps with the ones. And again, when myself and Coach Reese and the offensive staff feel it's to a point where there's a quarterback that's clearly showed us that he's the starter, we'll name him.
In years past, the team has traveled to Culver for fall camp. What was your mindset or rationale for keeping the team here in South Bend?
It wasn't available. It wasn't even something we talked about. I know the last couple of years they didn't do it because of COVID, but it wasn't something that was even brought up being available for this year.
Mike Borodino on your right.
Hey, Marcus. Jarrett Patterson, we saw at left guard, and even when you needed another center, he stayed at left guard today. maybe the rationale there? Is that a permanent thing? You're taking a look there, or is that more about his strengths, or that Zeke was better at center?
No, it's we feel like right now him playing guard is what just give our offensive line the best chance to have success. And so, you got to look at that unit in terms of all five, not in individual pieces. And, J-Pat being at guard, we feel like gives those five guys up front the best chance to be successful.
And then I guess we only have one follow-up now, so we'll keep it tight. But the June enrollees that we've talked about before, who's maybe already stepped forward a little bit, and I'd say Merriweather in particular, as you saw him out there today, you were watching those receiver drills a little bit. What do you think of his maturity at this point?
Yeah, I wish I could give you a better feel for those guys. I mean, we saw them a little bit in June, really in the weight room. And, there's some guys that have done some good things. Today, Merriweather stood out. But I think he's a guy that's in a position that, the depth in that room isn't extremely long. And so he's in a position where he's going to have to, step up early. And, if he's ready to help us, he's going to play, But I think because of the depth in that room, you see him get a lot more opportunities than some of those other guys. And so, again, he's long and can run. I've heard nothing but great things from the summer and what he's done. And so I'm excited to see what he does.
John Bryce, front row to your left.
Hey, Marcus. You mentioned this was maybe a little bit longer opening practice. We heard some of the really loud crowd music, some intense sessions. How much of that was about setting the tone from day one for the rest of fall camp?
I don't think this is going to be a longer practice than any other practice that we have in fall camp. I think it's just really evaluating what we feel. And we have a committee of guys that we meet and we say, hey, let's look at the GPS numbers. Let's look at the length of practice. Let's look at all these different variables and say, what do we feel is best in terms of how we're going to structure our practice? And so that was how myself and those other people came up with the length of practice. But to me, this is where we start. All right, there's a couple guys that couldn't finish practice, and so we have to get into a position where our guys aren't being pulled from practice, and so we have to condition our body. And the beautiful thing about it is I've been around different places where you really start slow, and then you build up, and then that second and third week is the hardest, longest practices. But the thing about it is right now we're starting out of ground zero, long practices, tough, hard practices, and because we have to develop fast, man. We got to be ready to roll, right out of the gate. And so it's very intentional of how we practice. The crowd noise, it's not about anything other than I want the coaches to let the players play, and that was it's a trigger. When you're inside, you can't hear anything. Outside, they can yell a little bit, but I want the coaches to let these guys, starting from day one, to learn how to communicate with each other, how to problem solve without the coaches being on the field.
And then my follow-up would be, how was your day constructed before practice? What time did you get here, meetings, all of that?
I don't know. I got here 5:30 something and went on a run and went to my office, prepared for our morning meeting, and had a staff meeting, and then had a team meeting, and then had a special teams meeting. Went back into my office and prepared for some of the night meetings and things I want to do tonight. Went to practice, and then I'm here. Mm-hmm.
Pete Byrne, second row, same area.
Coach, was there a position group in particular that stood out for you today, and if so, which one and why?
Man, I love being around our O-line. I do. That is, I say it all the time, we're an O-line, D-line driven program, and those guys work, and they're pushed, and they continue to respond to being challenged. I love being around. I love just the culture in that room, the vibe. And so, I spend a lot of time looking at those guys, especially maybe because I'm behind the offense and those guys are looking kind of where I'm in my direction. But as much as I can spend time with that O-line and D-line, I'm going to continue to do it because those guys will drive our culture and our program.
And I know you've got the spring under your belt, but this is your first practice as a head coach. How was today different for you than what a training camp practice used to be like?
There's some similarities and some differences. Is that first practice, like just as it is for the players, it's the same thing for the coaches of getting into your routine, right? I mean, hopefully by day 2 or 3, I don't have to look at my script and know what's the next period. I know exactly what's going on, but when you kind of go out there as assistant coach, as a head coach, it's that first practice, no different than the players, of trying to get into your routine, being exactly where you need to be, knowing exactly where you need to look. And so it's good to get under your belt. I'm used to being the one that blows the whistle now, and I'm just continue to find homes and during individual, and seeing, where I want to go and who I need to be around. But to me, it's a part of spending time with your players. And that's why I'm intentional about kind of moving around to individual drills, because, again, I'm not an offensive head coach, a defensive head coach, a special teams. I'm just the head coach, and I want to make sure I'm spending time with every position group. And, again, really trying to reemphasize the message of the position coaches. All right, and if I hear a point being driven home, then I want to make sure I'm supporting that message.
Pete Sampson, directly in front of Mr. Byrne.
Marcus, sort of walking out of practice, heard bits and pieces of your message to the team. I think it'd be fair to say it was intense, it was kind of animated. What did you need to get across to them on day one to sort of maybe reinforce the point that you've made to us about, like, this isn't just ease into training camp?
It's got to be hard. It's not changing. We're not changing what we're doing, and it's going to be hard. We had a couple guys that couldn't finish practice today, and it's their job to make sure they're available for practice. It's the trainer's job to make sure they protect the player, And so I was trying to send a message to those players that, hey, whatever you have to do to make sure you're available for practice. We had a couple guys go out because of heat, and whatever you have to do to make sure you're available, we have to do it, because we're not changing. Because I believe in what we've kind of scheduled out through this fall camp. I believe this is what we need to be prepared to go. And we're not going to change. We'll always look at and review and debrief and say, is there anything we can do to enhance? But the length of practice, the effort, the way we're going to challenge our players, that's not going to change. And so if they're looking for us to pull back, it's not going to happen. They have to continue to do whatever it takes to make sure they're ready to go.
I don't know if the reps that went to the freshmen were any more or less than we've seen in the past, but it seemed like there was some intentionality about, okay, let's get these guys some work. How intentional was that? What did you want them to experience? What did you want the coaches to be able to take away from it?
I think it's very intentional. When, if you're going to have some threes in there, or young guys that don't exactly know every intricate detail of the offense or defense, give them a chance to have success. And so if we can script together, get the threes on offense or threes on defense, and really help each other, be base in what we do offensively, be base in our concept defensively, play one or two defenses so we can evaluate those guys. You're not able to evaluate freshmen if they have no clue what they're doing. And so it's a double-edged sword, because we got to come and make sure that we're smart in terms of what we're asking them to do. They got to find a way to catch up to where those other guys are. But it's very intentional to put threes versus threes so we can truly evaluate.
Eric Hansen, front row, far right.
Hey, Marcus. Just building on your comments about liking to spend some time with the offensive line, as you've spent more time with the offense, both in the spring and now as you're getting into the fall, as you kind of look through that lens, what do you think are the most significant things you've kind of learned when you kind of turn the X's and O's around and look at from the other side? Yeah,
it's complex. It's challenging. Defensively, a lot is reaction, recognizing formations and reacting to what you see. Offensively, it's reaction, but I think it's just a little bit different. There's a lot on their plate in terms of recognizing coverages, recognizing schemes, reacting versus movement on the fly. So it's been really good for me to really spend a lot of times with the quarterbacks, to see their progression. Because I tell them all the time, you're going to get blamed if things don't go well, and it isn't always your fault. And perfect example today was Tyler threw a ball. It looked like it was a bad throw. I don't know who it was running the route, kind of didn't run the route exactly right. And I looked at Tyler and I said, hey, that's why you got to hold people accountable, because from my point of view, I looked at, man, that was a bad throw. No, that wasn't a bad throw. We got to make sure we run the right route. And so a lot of things fall in those quarterbacks' play, and that's who I spend the most of the time with. And so it's been eye-opening to really just to see it from their point of view.
And then my second question is about Maris Leafau. What makes him special? What are your expectations for him look like this year?
What makes him special? I mean, he is a high-motor, high-energy guy. He plays the game fast. He steps on the field and just loves to compete, and that's probably the thing you love about him most, man. We need competitors, and Maris is an ultimate competitor, and plays the game with passion, and that's what I really, really love about him. He's smart, he's intelligent, usually in the right place, and so that's what are my expectations? They're to be determined. My expectations are always extremely high for those guys, every single one of those players. I hope that he continues to, come back and he's not full go yet. He's limited in terms of his reps, and so I want to see him do that, be able to get to a place where he's 100% full go in practice, and then we'll go get to the game and we'll see what happens.
Tim Priester, back row middle.
You mentioned in the spring you want to put a greater emphasis in practice on the red zone. You spent a ton of time in the red zone today. Just your assessment of what you saw there from both quarterbacks, and is it limiting for Tyler Buckner if you can't go fully live when you're in the red zone because his legs and feet are so important to his game?
We started in the red zone because it was very intentional. It really, I think Al Golden was the one that said it in the NFL. They kind of did that to really work the long running of the skill guys, right? And so I'm not trying to take it easy, but it's a progression in terms of how long our wideouts and our DBs are running. And so that's kind of where we started in the spring of we're going to start in the red zone and then we'll work our way out to the middle of the field. And so that's why we did that. I mean, it went back and forth. It was really good to see. I think the defense has depth, and that's something to me that was noticeable. The offense, we're not as deep as we want to be yet. We'll continue to progress to that point. But it was good. You saw some good things from the offense, good things from the defense. In terms of Tyler Buckner, you know what? We all know he can run. So it's really good for him to progress in terms of being a passer, staying in the pocket, making good decisions, because it's always easy to take off and run.
When we talked to you at the end of June, you weren't sure about Avery Davis's availability, whether it be full go. I mean, it looks like he's full go, number one. And Kane Barong, what is his situation at
both of those guys are full go, except they're just limited in terms of the volume in the reps. And so we have a couple guys like that, Maris Liefeld being one. All of those guys are full go. As I told our staff, we can't tell guys to go 85%. That's not what we're going to demand. You step on the field, it's 100%, everything you do. So let's limit the reps. Let's limit the volume. Let's not limit how fast they're running or how full go they are.
Angelo DiCarlo, front on your left.
Coach, you've been on the job now 8 months. What have you learned about yourself maybe that you didn't know before, if there's anything like that?
The biggest thing is that I believe in the core of my heart the same things that make you a successful position coach, successful coordinator, I believe will be the same things that make you a successful head coach. And it still goes down to hard work. It still goes down to preparing. It goes down to using those great minds around you. I've always done that, and that's what I've learned. You maybe thought when you become the head coach, you change who you are. You become a different person. It's the same things I believe in my heart that has helped me progress in terms of this profession will be the same things I hope that will help me be a successful head coach.
And are you, Isaiah Foskey and Michael Mayer, the three best friends that anyone can have?
As I said in the video, I'm not their best friend. I'm their head coach.
Matt Lowe, back row on your left.
I mean, perfect segue. Two great videos from you. Obviously, that one and the announcement of the green jerseys returning. How important is that social media presence in terms of your recruiting success in today's social media age?
It's important, but I think for me, I have a team around me that understands if this will help this football program, I'm always going to say yes. Listen, I don't want to I wasn't begging to go out to Las Vegas and try to do a hangover parody or do this green jersey thing. But when the team, we got a FIM team, our Fighting Irish media that comes and says, hey, we got a great idea. This is going to help our program? Absolutely. Well, let's go. Let's do it. And so I would say for the most part, anything those individuals ask me to do, I'm going to be willing to do it because I know if they ask me to do something, it's going to help our football program. And it was kind of fun to go out to Vegas and hang out with Ben Mayer and Foskey. That was pretty fun.
Chuck Freeby, front row on your right.
Marcus, considering your numbers at running backs right now, and you're talking about everybody going full go, but you don't have a lot of bodies there. How do you balance that?
You got to be smart. You got to rotate them. It's a challenge. Coach McCullough has a huge challenge, because he's a competitor just like the rest of us. And he wants to put the best guys in there. He wants to put the guys in there that's going to make sure that we have success. We have to roll those guys, and you got Diggs, who's not truly full contact yet. So you saw him in the red. And so we got to progress him in the right way. So they've done a good job so far. I'm sure they'll be creative. I know Coach Reese, we've talked about it, being creative in terms of personnels and how we utilize these guys. But you got to get the work done. We can't have all of our running backs in red and think we're going to be prepared for the season. So, I don't believe in being overly cautious. I think we got to be smart, but we can't overly protect them in terms of we're not prepared.
You say your bar is always here, so maybe nobody can possibly surprise you, but has anybody pleasantly surprised you coming out of the spring through the summer into this first day of fall camp?
Jaden Mickey was a freshman that, did a really good job in the spring. And, he's an energy provider. Those confident guys that provide energy. Brandon Joseph, same thing. Offensive line, I'll continue to fall back to those guys, man. Zeke Correll, because of the spring he had and what he showed, we felt the five best offensive linemen to get the five best offensive linemen on the field would be to move J-Pat to guard. And so obviously showed us a lot of value in the spring. And so, God, I don't like pointing guys out, but those are just a couple of guys. Yeah, those are just a couple guys, yeah.
Tyler James, second row on your left.
Over here, Marcus. Jaden Thomas, how do you feel like he's handled an expanded role? He took a lot of reps for the number ones today.
Yeah, we're going to need him. We're going to need him to have a huge role for this offense this year. We've challenged him. I challenge him all the time. I'm going to need you. We're going to need you to step up. And he's a confident kid. He is continued. He's getting better and better and better. And that's all we ask. But he's going to have to get better fast because we're going to need a lot out of him. He's got to be a guy that if our defense is playing man coverage against us, we feel like we can go to him and win. That's got to be who he is.
Speaking of getting better, what can Isaiah Foskey do to expand upon a pretty good season he had last year?
Tremendous amount. He can improve in so many different areas, and I'm talking about a guy that's really, really good, right? And he's continued to perfect his pass rush. How do you play against the run? How do you continue to recognize offensive sets and formations, and all those different areas can help him enhance, and he wants to. He's a hungry guy. He came back for a reason, and him and Coach Washington, I know they meet often and look at different ways to help him improve as an individual for sure.
Ashton Pollard, back row middle.
You talked about Avery Davis on the field, but what has he brought from a leadership perspective? I know that he was a captain last year, but he was recently on a podcast and talked a lot about leadership and being remembered. So what does he bring to the team in that respect? I was in the offensive unit meeting yesterday, and Coach Reese was talking about dependable players, and Avery Davis was the first person he brought up, a guy that's played 5 positions since he's been here. But a guy that the offense can always depend on being in the right spot. And, he's a returning captain, but he's going on his 6th season. And a guy that has been through so many ups and downs. He's going to be a great resource for the young people, but he's going to be a dependable playmaker for our offense. And so he's been a great, great leader, a great senior, really good for our offense. And then as far as punt returning, Javon Payne was back there. It was Price prior to the injury. What have you kind of seen from him? And then just in general, what has he brought since he just got here a month and a half ago? Yeah, today was the first day we did punt return. So I don't know who was back there yet. I'll get with Coach Mason and see. I know Brandon Joseph has done it. Matt Salerno has done it. And the biggest thing is you need somebody back there that you can count on. Punt returns, you got to get somebody that – is very confident, that is going to catch the ball in traffic. And if he can make a play and make a first down, that's an added bonus. But the first thing is somebody that makes good decisions and that we are very dependable. It's very dependable. We can depend on him to make good decisions. And so if Jabron's one of them, that's great. I didn't know. I'm sure everybody thinks there's a punt returner the first day, and
it'll be interesting to see who all was back there catching punts. Yeah.
Tyler Horka, back row on your right.
We saw Jaden Mickey and Brandon Joseph catch a couple passes at the very beginning. Is that something that you think they can work on more as fall camp goes along and maybe even working up to September 3rd?
Are you talking about that first period?
Very first period.
Yeah, so anytime we have a returner, that period is any guy on offense should be going to defense if you're a coverage, special teams coverage unit guy, and any guy that's on defense that might have a chance to get their hands on the ball as a returner, they should go to offense. And so it's really, we're just working on the fundamentals. Hey, the ability to get the ball in your hands, get vertical, make one cut and go, and defensively the ability to close the space, get yourself in a leverage position to make a good tackle. So that is a great opportunity for those guys that need to cross-train. I don't think we're going to use them on offense.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then just clarifying a couple of things that you said with Joey Tanona, is that a this year thing or is he done playing football for good?
He's medically retired, disqualified.
And then with the heat exhaustion, was that Blake Fisher and Zeke Carell, or are they good? Those are the two guys that I noticed that stopped.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And so we got to, again, it's a great reminder. Those guys have been busting their tails all summer to get in shape. And then all of a sudden you get out there that first practice, the heat, the sweat, the anxiety, the energy, it all just kicks up. And so that's why I remind them after practice, it's your job to make sure you're available. So what you have to do from now until tomorrow when we're back on the field, right, it's up to you and it's up to each individual to make sure they're ready to go. All right. Thanks, guy. Good to see you back.